Welcome to lesson 3 on area of trapezoids. So today we're going to be talking about a trapezoid, and a trapezoid is just a quadrilateral. This is a quadrilateral that has one pair of its opposite sides that are parallel. A trapezoid has two bases, and the bases are the parallel lines. The height of the trapezoid is the perpendicular distance between the two bases. So we're going to go through and identify some bases and heights right now. So I can call this right here base 1, and I can call this base base 2 because it is parallel with base 1. Now the height is just going to be any perpendicular line that's in between these two bases. Okay, so again, your bases have to be parallel, so this bottom one is going to be I'm going to label this base 2 because it actually doesn't matter which one is which base. And I'm going to label this top one base 1. And the height is just going to be the perpendicular line that connects them. Now we've got a trapezoid that's on a grid. So to make this a little bit easier, we're going to rotate our paper so that we see two parallel lines, two lines that would never intersect. And we're going to label them our bases. You can label one base 1 and the other base 2. Doesn't matter which one's which. And then the height is just going to be the perpendicular line that connects them. So label that your height. All right, so to find the area of a trapezoid, we're going to use the following formula. It's going to be area equals the quantity base 1 plus base 2 times height divided by 2. Okay? There is another way to do this formula, and you could also use area equals 1/2 times the quantity base 1 plus base 2 times height. So either one of these should yield the exact same answer. So let's give it a try. We're going to write the formula, substitute our known values, and then just evaluate. So you can pick either formula to use. I will go ahead and use this formula just for the first one. So we've got area equals 1/2 times the quantity base 1 plus base 2 times height. I'm going to plug in what I know. So first I'm going to identify my bases. My bases are going to be the two parallel lines. And I'm going to label one of them base 1 and the other base 2. Then my height is going to be the perpendicular line that connects those two. So now I'm just going to plug in my information. We've got 1/2 times the quantity base 1, which is 18 yards, plus base 2, which is 12 yards, times the height, which is 11 yards. So 18 plus 12 should be 30 yards. And we've got 1/2 times that 30, and then times the height, which is 11 yards. So 1/2 times 30. Now 1/2 times a number is really just the same thing as taking that number and dividing it by 2. So 1/2 of 30 is just 15 yards times 11 yards. And we get a total of 165. And since we're finding area, our unit is going to be yards squared. So area equals 165 yards squared. All right, let's go ahead and try another example. We've got another trapezoid here. Okay, we've got another trapezoid here. The first thing we're going to do is identify the base, so the two parallel lines. Label one of them base 1 and the other base 2. And then go ahead and identify the height. The height has to be the perpendicular line that's connecting them. So then we're going to write out our formula. Just to show you, I'm actually going to use the other formula, so the quantity base 1 plus base 2 times height divided by 2. So now I'm going to plug in the information I know. So area is going to equal base 1, which is 24 centimeters, plus base 2, which is 18 centimeters, times the height, which is 12 centimeters, and then I'm going to divide the whole thing by 2. It's important that we put the adding in parentheses because with order of operations, we have to do that part first. So what we're going to do is take 24 plus 18, and we get 42 centimeters, times our height, which is 12 centimeters, and then divide it by 2. So now we're going to take 42 times 12, which should be 504 centimeters squared, because we're also multiplying the units, and we're still going to divide that by 2. So 504 divided by 2 should be 252, and our unit will be centimeters squared. All right, the next is a right trapezoid. So instead of having 2 diagonal sides on each side, we actually have 1 perpendicular side and 1 diagonal side. With a shape like this, you're going to find the area using the exact same formula. You're going to identify the 2 bases, and then you're going to identify the height. So what you're going to do now is just plug in the bases and the height into the formula. If you'd like to pause the video and try this one on your own, go ahead and do so. And feel free to replay the video as soon as you're ready to check your answer. So for those of you following, I am going to go ahead and solve this one right now. We've got area equals 1/2 times the quantity base 1 plus base 2 times height. So then we've got 1/2 times base 1, which I'm going to say is the 20 meters, plus base 2, which then is going to be 14 meters, times the height, which is going to be 14 meters. Okay, I'm going to add 20 plus 14, which is 34 meters. Multiply that by my height, and then multiply it all by 1/2. 1/2 of 34, 1/2 of a number is the same thing as dividing it by 2, so 34 divided by 2 should be 17 meters times 14 meters, because that's our height. And we end with a solution of 238 meters squared is our area. All right, the next one's a challenge, but we're gonna go through it. We're gonna follow the same steps that we've been following for working backwards with triangles and parallelograms. So a trapezoid has an area, I'm gonna underline important information, of 13.5 square inches. If the bases are 3 inches and 6 inches, so we've got our 2 bases, what is the height of the trapezoid? So first, I'm gonna start with my formula. Now, anytime you're working backwards, it's much easier to use the formula that's like all on one line. So 1/2 times base 1 plus base 2 times height. And then what we can do is just plug in our information that we know. So we know that the area is 13.5 square inches. So I'm going to plug that in for the A. 13.5 inches squared. We're going to keep the half fraction. We know that one of the bases is 3 inches, and we're going to add the other base, which is 6 inches, and then we don't know the height, so we're going to leave our variable h there. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to solve using order of operations. So we're going to add 3 plus 6 is 9 inches. We're going to keep the rest of our formula the same. We're going to take 1/2 of 9. Well, 9 divided by 2 is really just 4.5 inches. The rest stays the same. And now all we're doing is solving an equation, because we've got 4.5 inches times the height is going to equal 13.5 inches. So we're going to divide by 4.5 inches on both sides. and you should end up with a height of 3 inches. All right, thanks for watching the video. Please go ahead and start some practice.